Our next featured match set of the day is veteran teams Fulcrum Gaming versus River of Blood. It is important to note that Nogtron and myself are on the Fulcrum team, so when I talk in third person, I swear I am not being crazy. The first map choice goes to Fulcrum, who has chosen Lakeville. Let's head in. And here we are with Fulcrum Gaming running with two 5100s, one T69, one 1390, a T71, a Bison, and a T1 Cunningham. And we have River of Blood running with one 5100, two IS3s, a T69, a Lorraine 155-51 artillery piece, a T2 light tank, and a T1 Cunningham. What do you think of these lineups?
I think it's pretty obvious that I'm going to have to go with ours, Fulcrum Gaming's, aside from the fact that we've got a smaller artillery, and I really don't think artillery is that big of a deal on this map. We've got more mobile lineup. The two IS-3s on River of Blood side are probably going to end up being a little bit of a problem, especially given the fact that they're committing them into the eastern side right now, along with what looks like everything else.
Yeah, exactly. The IS-3s can't move around quite as fast, and that becomes an issue with commitment on this map, where you're either going down the 1-2 line for the valley, the center road, or you're going through the city, and it's easy to back out and wrap around for a cap if you get caught anywhere with those heavies out. So really, all we need is those lights to know that they're here.
One interesting thing to note already is that neither team decided to take the four-line or go up the middle at all. In fact, River of Blood, audacious enough to leave their artillery at A5. If we had sent anything up the four-line, we likely would have spotted him and taken him out for free.
Ooh, yeah, that's a pretty rough spot. Usually you see him moved over closer to the A6-7 area where there's some really good bush cover there, and they can still fire fairly well into the city. Here you can see myself and the Bison doing something that all artillery should do at all points in time. And what I'm doing right here is looking at the specific breaks in the city. Because we don't have any lights on their tanks, I can see what tanks have entered. You can see in the top left and right there that there's two sections that are broken in, so I know there's at least two tanks that came through. There's another two sections that are broke there, so I know they split. And based on the size of those, I can usually tell fairly well how big of a tanks they went through, so I know like at this point that it's probably an IS-3 and a 5100 that broke through all that, and not just like a T1 or T2 light tank.
This is all intelligence, as we call it, or intel, that he's passing on to us, or Friction and I, the two people who are generally calling these battles, and we're getting Absolute Royal, our scout and our tertiary caller, to start trying to carefully look through that city and see if we can make contact so that we can make a better decision about where we want to go. We trust Relics in the fact that he knows things have been broken, but we're not entirely sure whether it's a T2 light or, perhaps a 69, something that's been doing circles in there. Sometimes teams very well could just drive around aimlessly. But Riverblood isn't necessarily one of those teams, and we're trying to be very careful about not upsetting the balance, not getting in there too quickly and losing Absolute Royal and our scout, thus putting us at a disadvantage.
Yep, and we really need that initial light is what we're looking for here. Just some kind of confirmation that even if we see one IS-3 or one T69, any tank in the city is really enough confirmation that they're pretty dedicated there. And then we can make our decision of whether we're going to go further to the west side or if we're going to try to push on it. The big thing there is we can't really move too far to the north through the city because we know that they have artillery, and if we get on their side, that 155-51 can put a lot of pain on our autoloaders to the point where it could even one-shot one of our autoloaders.
Exactly. That's the biggest problem here. With the lineup they have, with all the alpha of the IS-3s, the sustained fire of the 69 and 5100, and that 51, the Lorraine 155-51 backing them up, it's kind of absurd for us to even consider pushing through the city. If we pick the wrong road and we pick the one they're all aimed at, we're going to lose 1 to 2 tanks almost immediately, and this game is over as it is. So right now what we're trying to do is get Royal to get around the city, make some sort of contact so we know if they have 4 tanks in here, we don't have to go through it. We can just swing and go up the middle or the west. But if they only have 2 tanks in there, then perhaps it's worth the risk to plow through and try and get them. So right now, very, very reserved, just carefully trying to find any sort of intel to make our call.
Likewise, the other option of a call that you would usually get on this map is, well, let's rush through the valley, get on the cap, and then we can just screen them out as they make their way back. But again, that 155-51 puts, a big wrench in any of those kind of plans, because as soon as you get on cap, if you're getting spotted by anything, he's going to rain down on you again. So really, the key here is to get something out of place or get some kind of initial damage on them from some kind of awkward angle before we make any kind of engagement. That way we're going into something that we at least think we can win.
So at this point in time, we haven't made any real contact. We're considering starting to shift tanks back to the 3-4 area just in case maybe they're starting to come down the valley. We don't know whether they're actually in city or not. All we've seen are breaks. Royal hasn't been able to get in there close enough to spot anything, and that's really where we are. So right now, I think you're shopping a little bit in the Bison. Maybe you can tell us what exactly is going through your head right now.
Well, right now, as everything's moving out of the city there, I'm specifically looking for additional breaks of anything moving back to their cap. Assuming that they're probably going to be looking at pulling back at around the 4-minute mark to make sure that they don't get jumped on before that happens. One key thing that we just saw there was, on his way out, our T-71 Absolute Royal spotted that IS-3. That is very key information as we were pulling back, because now you can see we're starting to make that roll up the west side. Very slowly, still making sure that there's nothing waiting over there for us that'll allow the artillery to just dump on us.
Looks like Hugo and Absolute Royal are taking a brief moment to indulge in forbidden passions, not getting the memo that we're trying to plow down the valley as quickly as possible. No, I'm just kidding. It looks like he's trying to boost up and over the hill there, but that's not necessarily necessary. We found the IS-3 in the city. We already know that we've got at least a 1-tank advantage over here. It's worth the risk to us. We've already played it slow enough as is. No real need to draw. Let's get this over with. That's what we're thinking. So we send Absolute Royal in. He's spotted by a T1. We know where the T1 is, relatively, because they're almost always there. But this is where things start to get interesting. River of Blood has seen us, and they're coming back. So are we able to push up this fast enough? That's the question.
Yep, and a big key there, especially now that they've seen the T-71 and the T-69, so they know we have a pretty heavy force coming through Valley somewhat. But we haven't still taken out that T1 or gotten close enough to take him. Looks like they might have thought it was too risky to do that. But here we've decided on doing a split. We have the T-69, the T-71, and the 5100 right now moving through, with the Bison following it up. The big key with the Bison having a shorter range, he's not going to be able to get great shots on anything coming up that 5, 6, 7 area as they make their way back to cap. So he needs to get closer to allow that to happen.
Now Hugo is flirting with the idea of crossing in the open there, but he knows he's spotted. He knows the T1 can still see him. He's not entirely sure where it is, so I believe he's sending out a couple blind shots, seeing if he can get him, but I don't know what he's thinking. That's not where they are. In the meantime, if he tries to cross that, he's going to get lit up by a 5100 and possibly the Lorraine 51, but the Lorraine 51 has been spotted by friction in the middle and is taking fire, and he's out.
Oh, that is a very, very key death right there. That means that there's not going to be any artillery support on the cap, which means we don't need to worry about anything except for the tanks that are coming up. We have the 5100 and the 1390 able to screen for us. We know the IS-3s are a little bit further back. That's huge. That means we can get some cap pressure going on and force them into the open, make them come into an engagement that they don't want to be in.
That is the key. Drive across the open, getting strafed by the 1390 and 5100 we've left there. Absolute Royal and his T-71 is coming up the 8 line. His job was to actually take out Canaduck and the Lorraine 155-51, but that's already been done, so he is putting shots into Captain Blood. That T-71 is mean with those little heat rounds.
Yep, you can see him taking tons of damage. 1390, I believe, getting into that action too. One IS-3 down, not even able to engage in anything. There's Savagey moving up, getting covered by the building. Doc Gollum and his T-69 on his own. Looks like he's up against Hugo Maximus and Nagatron right here. And I think he thinks that you are out of shells right now.
I am out of shells and I'm trying to run. Hugo is not able to save me. I believe you are also shopping for a shot on him, but too little too late. Unfortunately for them, it's not going to be enough. Absolute Royal and Friction are double teaming Savagey right now. I believe Hugo and Relics are over there cleaning up the T69, and this game is over.
Oh, that was just a vicious exchange of autoloader fire there from the 1390 and the T71. What a beautiful game as it came towards the end there. Obviously, it started out a little bit slow, but with that artillery pressure all around, it makes sense. But when the action started going, that was a great game. So that's going to bring up Fulcrum 1-0 against River Blood. Moving on to the away team choice, we head to Prohorovka, where ROB will try to tie it back up. Let's head in. Here we go with River of Blood running with 2 T69s, 3 WZ-132s, and 2 T1 Cunninghams, whereas Fulcrum is running with 2 T69s, 2 1390s, a GW Panther with an amazing artillery player, and a T2 light or 2 T2 light tanks. What do you think of these setups?
Well, first off, I don't think it's nice to lie to the public like that. Anyways, River of Blood very obviously is going for a rush strat, hence the 3 132s. We already know that, so we're deliberately trying to set up along the rail line. So if they come down the 7, we can hop to the west. If they come down the 5, we can hop to the east. River of Blood already knows that we're likely suspecting this. It's a heavy metagame going on. So they're coming down the 2-3, hoping to catch us in the 2-3 in the KJ area, because that's what they thought we would do. They thought we would set up there and snipe them as they came down. But they made the wrong call on that one. So we are in cover all the way in the east right now. Right, I'd have to say we've got a pretty significant advantage.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't necessarily blame them for thinking the 1-2. When you bring artillery, there's really 2 places you can take it in the speed that it can go. You can either keep it on the 2 if it's all the way on that side, or you can keep it on the 6. There's no way you can bring a GW Panther with them coming over that fast all the way to the east side before he gets spotted if he spawns too far to the west. So it was a good move on their part, but now they're coming up on a really tough position here. You can see we're still lined up, and ooh, F-Zero getting a kill on a T1 before they proxy spot him. That was a beautiful job.
That'll do, Zero. That'll do.
River of Blood. Go ahead.
River of Blood is in a significant disadvantage here with a bunch of 132s trying to face off against all these autoloaders. Soviet took a pretty big hit leading out to try and put some damage into Savagey. Hugo and I are putting the hurt on Captain Blood right now. He is one shot, but we are both on clip. River of Blood looks like they're still trying to figure out exactly how they want to handle this. If they come up and over the berm, they're going to get absolutely lit up because those 132s have no depression. So I think right now they're just trying to figure out how can we get on that side without being totally punished for it.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the key issues that they have here is with that GWP on the field, you have to be cautious of exactly, how much cover you have. Because if you move too far away, you might take that one hit from a GWP, and then you're down another tank.
Now that sound we just heard was Captain Blood taking out Absolute Royal in a T2 in a bush. That was barely out of frame as we were focused on myself and Striker and Doc in a little bit of a Mexican standoff here. Canaduck is doing the same against Soviet and Friction. You can't really see it on the screen, but you can see it on the minimap. Soviet has slipped out over the north side of that berm and is popping into E5 right now. He is going to have beautiful shots on the back of these guys while we light them by proximity through the railroad, and Friction is at the top kind of deciding whether he wants to be on the east or the west so he can support us either way. So right now he's letting Soviet do all the work, and he's just making sure that he's a safety net for me and Hugo.
Yeah, the big key thing we have going on right now is this is essentially a 5-on-4 with myself not doing anything in the GWP until they make this push. Big shot there on Savage. He knocks him out. Doc Gollum continues down, but Friction and Nagatron right there. 2 T69s, or I'm sorry, a T69 and 1390 able to just dump in. Then we have Striker still left, and Canaduck I'm not sure exactly where Striker's going here.
It looks like both of them are trying to find Soviet. Soviet has craftily slipped directly up the 4 line, but he's not going to cap. He's going all the way over to the 3 while he clips. It's going to be very hard to find him. In the meantime, Relics again with a monster shot from his GWP into that 132, 919 damage, and it's just Striker versus the world. Well, I guess he does have a T1 buddy, but
He's got a buddy. They got this.
T1 ain't much of a buddy.
Yeah, T1's not going to do much for you. And here we are with just the cleanup, just T1 ARG left. That is a beautiful name. That is a beautiful, beautiful name.
I look fondly back on these matches, but not necessarily just because we won, but because there was so much head game going on here. The very first match, River of Blood, was expecting us to go to our bread and butter Ensk at the time. We threw Lakeville at him to kind of keep him off guard. They took us to Pro because that's typically where we've been weak, and they tried to rush us because we typically go lighter, and it just didn't work out for him. It was very, very close, but those distracting shots from Soviet tipped it barely in our favor, and a couple key shots from Relics sealed it up.
Yep, great series overall. So that'll bring Fulcrum Gaming up 2-0, and they will move on to the semifinals.